Welcome back to Martins and More. My name's Maury Rutch.
And I'm Spoon Phillips.
And
I am Michael Dickinson.
Michael Dickinson's in the house. So, Michael, why don't you tell us a little bit about what you're doing here?
Well, what am I doing here is, okay, so Robert Goetzl. Robert Goetzl. I saw him yesterday, and he promised me he would pay me 25 cents every time I said his name during the podcast. So the answer to every question is, of course, Robert Goetzl.
That's genius.
Yes, it is.
That's genius. Robert, of course, being the artist who has done amazing work with Martin Guitar and for Martin Guitar and on Martin Guitars. If anybody's been to the factory visitor center, you've seen the mural that he did in the lobby, and likely many of his special edition, the guitars that he's had hands in anyway, the special editions. But hi, Robert.
Wow. I am so impressed. Robert Goetzl just hijacked this episode. Maybe we should send Mike home and get back on with Robert. Robert, you had your time in the sun. You've already been on this show.
That's right.
Well, anywho, Michael, we're sincerely happy to have you here. I want to start by reintroducing you. We're going to resist retelling the long history about Mike's background. That's found in our original podcast episode with Mike Dickinson quite a few months back. But, Mike, would you take maybe a minute or so just to warm people up to exactly who you are, and then we'll get right into the meat and bones of this episode.
Okay, so I've been at Martin Guitar for next month will be 33 years. Worked my way up from the sawmill through various departments, and right now my main function at Martin Guitar is buying wood for that we turn into the guitars. I also have a hobby at Martin Guitar, which is I also buy a lot of the pearl we put in some of the high-end guitars. So,
Ooh.
If it requires federal documentation to get in or out of the country, chances are I'm involved in it.
Oh, wow. Spoon,
Yes.
Did you know that?
I did not know that specifically, but I did know that an awful lot of materials that go into musical instruments like guitars do require that these days because of environmental protection reasons. And we know that Chairman Chris Martin has been very adamant about his commitment to that for many, many years. So I'm not surprised.
I'm sort of glad you just mentioned that because, this hits on two areas. One is Robert Goetzl.
Man, I see where this is going.
So, Robert, as you know, has done many artwork for Martin Guitar. And his latest one is on a guitar that's called the OM Biosphere.
Sure.
And I'm not spilling beans or telling secrets, but yesterday we sent out a press release that said, Martin Guitar is proud to announce that they have officially achieved Preferred by Nature Sustainability Framework certification for the Martin OM's Biosphere, making the company the first to achieve this certification in the U.S. and only second worldwide.
Wow.
And then it goes on and talks about the OM Biosphere. It's a plastic-free guitar. It's FSC certified. So I may have touched on this a little bit. So Preferred by Nature is our FSC certification body. So FSC makes up the rules, and Preferred by Nature makes sure we're following the rules. And for years, if you looked inside certified guitars, you would see a picture of a frog. And Chris really liked that frog. It was his, it was a way for him to say, look, we are the only FSC certified musical instrument. We got a frog in some of our guitars. We're better than you. And not exactly in those words, but, he was very proud of the frog. So when Rainforest Alliance a few years ago decided they were going to get out of certification of companies that deal with wood. So they're still involved with newspaper. They're still involved with coffee and some other items, but they got out of wood products, and this company called Preferred by Nature took over that. And we told them, we like the frog, what can you do for us? And they use a hummingbird as their logo. So it took some talking to hours upon hours of research and paperwork. And besides a shout out to Robert Goetzl. I also worked with a lady named Cindy McAllister and John McElroy and Fred Everett and a whole team. Thomas was on the team. Matt Kennedy was on the team. We all got together and still get together, and put our noses to the grindstone and just did everything possible to get this certification. And, we did a little jig when it was all done, and we can't wait to get the stickers made and start putting them inside the OM Biosphere.
Congratulations.
Which, of course, you can buy from Maury's Music, and he will give you a free hummingbird.
I don't know what Robert Goetzl is going to think about that, but thank you, Michael.
Hey, maybe we could get Robert Goetzl to give them a free drawing.
Well, I don't know if speaking for Robert Goetzl is a good idea, but I like the idea. In fact, I used the Biosphere on the 20 questions game that we play that had Maury sweating when he was trying to go through all of the guitars that it could possibly be and ask questions about what Martin guitar currently in production I was thinking of. And I think that may have been one of the ones I stumped him on because he ran out of questions. But if you guys have never seen, anybody out there's never seen this guitar, it's got a beautiful painting, undersea scene of a coral reef with a sea turtle and a lot of other sea life on the top. That's a digitally achieved copy of a painting that Robert Goetzl did.
Yes.
Well, speaking of sea life, last time we saw you was at Martin Fest 2023. First of all, it was great to see you. And secondly, can you think of any great stories we should hear? Because I know you can't be everywhere at once. And after I got back from Martin Fest, I started seeing lots of pictures and videos online. And I only got to spend a very limited amount of time with you. Maybe I'll ask you, what was your brightest memory of this year's festivities?
So this had to be one of my favorite Martins on Main. And the reason was usually the booth goes, it's either way too crowded and you're constantly trying to convince people to play guitars correctly and not beat guitars up. This year, everybody was calm, and the people on stage must have been very inspirational. So I don't always get to hear a lot of the performers, but this year was really nice. It was somebody would be on stage performing, the booth would be practically empty, and you could sit there and listen. And then that person would end, and everybody would get up from their seats and run over and look for the guitar the guy was playing or something close and sit there and try and start playing. And then as the next performer would start getting into his set, everybody would just leave the tent. And then,
wow.
So all day was like that. The main disappointment was, I don't know how to convince people to get their free food and buy a guitar from Maury's Music. Which is our running thing. This year it was ice cream, and on top of that, seeing Robert Goetzl. And Robert
I must have missed seeing Robert Goetzl. I didn't realize he was around.
Yes.
Well, I really do appreciate your time there, Michael. It's always fun to do our little bit. And I guess it's probably the logistically, how do you really ship an ice cream cone? We should think of something a little bit easier next time. But
well, they're supposed to eat it there.
If we could, if I could tell you a little secret, it was I just wanted to be at the ice cream line, and that was the heart of everything. But yeah, Spoon, I don't know if you got to taste that, but it was pretty good.
Yeah,
I did not. I saw Michael enjoying his, and for those who've never been to Martin Fest, on Saturday they have what they call Martin on Main. That's a street fair, and in the town square, which is ironically a circle. people gather under a big shade tree and watch people who are performing on a stage that are all from the unofficial Martin guitar form. And then on the other side of the circle, Martin sets up a couple of booths actually, some with branded clothing and that kind of stuff, and some with a bunch of guitars that are out there for people to play and ask questions about. And Michael was the main host of that event this time up at the booth.
And Michael, I know you and I got to speak briefly yesterday at the factory, but I forgot to ask you this there. So can I ask you a sensitive question on the airwaves?
Sure.
I told Lori that when I saw you at the Martin booth during Martin on Main, that I helped you guys change a string on one of the guitars, and she asked me, does that mean I'm invited to the employee Christmas party?
I can get you. So
You can say no.
So here. We haven't had one in a few years because of COVID, and I don't know if we're going to go back to that. Of course, because everybody was home and we all had to stay 6 feet apart. If they plan something, I will do my best to get you in the door. Because with 500-ish people spread out over 2 shifts, it's usually not a Christmas party. It is usually a luncheon, and out of the 500 employees, there's probably about 100 of them that can play guitar on some level. So a lot of the Christmas celebration that we do is they set up a little stage, and Martin employees it's like an open mic, and when you have 10 minutes and 2 songs to do, you just get up there and you entertain your fellow coworkers, and people stroll in and out, and there's still, people working. But yeah, I'm sure I'll let you know what day it is.
That's really cool. I've never known about that.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you.
So, Michael, I have a question. So, I remember in the early 2000, just after the year 2000, right around there was some controversy about that Martin was, buying natural ebony, but they were actually dyeing it to make it more uniformly black. And a lot of people have commented that the fingerboards on Martin guitars now are also looking quite uniformly black. So is it the rumor's true that Martin is now dyeing fingerboards? Not that it matters to me, but I am curious because it is a topic in the zeitgeist these days.
Yeah, so certain fingerboards get dyed, certain fingerboards don't. It's always been that way. Back in the day when everything D18 and lower got a rosewood board, almost everything was dyed. When we've started moving the ebony down the line as far as what instruments get ebony fingerboard, we stop dyeing. Like you buy an SC13, that is not dyed. But you buy a D45, chances are somebody's dyeing that. And they're getting...
So it really is about cosmetic uniformity. So I guess the only reason it's controversial to me, possibly, is back then there was an issue with the dyes leaking into the finish, if you remember that. And was that more, people get like some ghost color around in the finish? Do you remember that? And was that to do with the nitrocellulose finish, or was that to do with the dye? Do you remember that at all?
I don't know that. I know we were using Macassar ebony.
That's exactly what it was, because my
Yes.
2000 D20 was Macassar ebony. That's exactly what it was.
And we didn't dye the Macassar because it was striped naturally, and dye just, it dulls the stripes, but it doesn't take everything away. But that had nothing to do with the staining of the fingerboards and bridges, because the black ebony still got stained depending on the model. The Macassar ebony, there was some sort of, and we still don't know 100% why, but there was some sort of weird reaction between the finish and the wood.
And so it wasn't a matter of dyed fretboards. It was actually a matter of the fact that it was not African or Indian ebony. It was Macassar ebony from wherever that's from, Southeast Asia, Indonesia.
Yes, Southeast Asia. And yeah, it was Macassar ebony was it, and you would get this like yellow halo around the edge of the fingerboard and around the bridge area.
Well, I'm glad I asked. I never knew that, and I always wondered what was the true story was about that. Oh, okay, so it's unrelated to the fact you guys do dye your ebony just to get the uniform blackness.
There again, throughout the history of Martin Guitar, the dyeing of fingerboards has come and gone on certain models and stays on certain models and goes away. And like I said, right now, I believe I don't have a spec sheet or a work order in front of me to be able to look it all up. But I think like pearl fingerboards will still get a little stain put on them, but like 28s and 18s and down the road do not.
So, Michael, back in 2022, I know Martin put a bulletin out, and it seemed like there was a good stretch where the further we went along in 2022, the more opportunity there was to see a very blotchy or striped, or I'm not sure what the word would be, but you really couldn't guarantee to find...
Streaked.
Yeah, streaked ebony fretboards and bridges were becoming more and more the norm, and now we're seeing a wave of... I wouldn't say that stopped, but we're seeing a lot of really nice, clean-looking boards, and I wondered if you guys backtracked and began fixing those kind, or is it a luck of the draw thing where certain dealers are getting nicer pieces of boards?
No, well, it's not certain dealers. It's certain lumber's shipments of wood. So we did put out the bulletin about the streaky fingerboards, and said we did that on some road series, and we moved it. I think some of it may have made its way onto an 18, but we would still keep the darkest stuff for some of the higher end moderns and customs, and then the next shipment of wood comes in, and so when I'm buying wood, the wood I'm buying, some of it can sit for like the regular woods, mahoganies, rosewood, ebony. It comes in the back door. It may not make it onto a guitar for 3 years.
Right.
Having been in Congo, they cut a tree down and it falls, and you buy the tree, and if it's for years, we used to just save up all this streaky ebony and just, if we found a really cool looking piece, we'd offer it to the custom shop. And then we decided, well, we need to use this. And then so we grade it out and we go, okay, these on this model, these on this model, this in between that could be. And then the next shipment comes in and the next tree comes down and the next shipment comes in. And it just happens to be a lot darker. So now you have your model specifications for streaky and the amount of streaky you're allowed to have in every board. And you go, we now have to push this down the line a little bit, because all we have available to use right now is mostly black. So then we run with mostly black for a while, and then the next tree is cut down, it's sent over it gets processed, it gets to us, and it could be a little more streakiness in it, and we go, oh no. And then we have to move it back up the line.
Well,
so
as former clinician Howie Emerson used to say, don't panic, it's organic.
Yes.
And that's the way I feel about it. I don't see streaky ebony as a bad thing. As a lover of wood, I think there's often having natural figure in ebony fingerboards and bridges. It can be very attractive and unique. It helps make the guitar unique. I understand some people want their guitar, their D28 to look just like Peter Yarrow's D28. Well, I mean, not that many people remember who he is anymore, but
no, I don't.
But I do actually like that. I like that about my D28 that was owned by a friend of mine now, that it had unique Macassar ebony streaks in it. But well, thanks. I'm glad I asked.
And there's a couple of older guitars in the museum that, like, the fingerboards are streaked. And I'm pretty sure in like the 1870s and early 1900s, nobody really cared. But hey.
Yeah, exactly. You hear a lot of that about straight grain stuff too. Perfectly quarter sawn straight grain. There's plenty of guitars in the museum and plenty of guitars from the 20s and 30s that have some pretty interesting, wild-looking grain. That maybe it was just Chris's granddad was the sort of straight-laced conservative guy that wouldn't use that kind of wood. But you see a lot of pre-war Martins that have all kinds of interesting grain on them.
Yeah, and there again, it's time and technology. So back in the earliest days when Brazilian rosewood was coming into New York, and somebody cut the log, he bought whatever was available. I mean, you can see some guitars from, I guess, the 1860s into the 1870s, where every so often it's Brazilian rosewood veneer
Oh, wow.
onto a piece of spruce. So the backs aren't solid, and the reason for that was he couldn't get the solid wood, so he used what he could to build guitars. Price didn't go up, price didn't go down, price stayed the same. And then like streaky fingerboards, different purflings. I mean, there are some of the really old guitars. You'll see a style 18. You'll have 3, 4, 5 style 18s, and each one of them has a different type of purfling on it based on what was available at the time for him to purchase. And then, the Industrial Revolution happens. Big machines come. Somebody can cut a log now instead of 2 guys with a saw. Somebody can now just start pushing buttons and push a log through a giant sawmill, and they can order quarter sawn wood, and you start just seeing a lot more everything becoming perfectly quarter sawn. And then nowadays, as we're going into this, where we're going, okay, trees are not going to be around forever. If we don't stop, look at the material we're using, and try to use alternative materials. And some of those alternatives are the flat sawn stuff.
And would you mind, Michael, can you briefly describe the difference between those two?
Between a flat sawn and quarter sawn. So if you look at the end of the log and you cut it in 4, you would see the rings. You can then start slicing against the rings so that it looks like when you're looking at the edge of the board, everything goes up and down straight. So you take the round and you just make sure that when you cut it, all the lines at the edge of the board are going up and down straight. But you have to cut the log into 4 wedges to do that. For flat sawn, what you do is you basically just start at the top of the log and slowly cut from one end to the other end, and what you'll see on the edge of the boards is the grain is running the width of the board. So instead of running the thickness of the board, it runs the width of the board, and then you get the big cathedral pattern, which I think is pretty cool looking.
I always call it a vortex.
Yes.
Looks like the swirling vortex thing. Yeah, but.
Right. And then, there are certain trees, like when we were doing Madagascar rosewood, like 90% of that was flat sawn because the trees don't grow that big. Honduras rosewood the same way. The trees don't grow that big. So if you want to make a guitar out of it, you have no choice but to use flat sawn.
Well, keeping it all about wood, because that's why you're here, Spoon had a great question about ebony, so I don't want to be outdone. Can I ask you, has Lutz shown up on many guitars since we last spoke? Because another bulletin that came through back in 2022 was the warning that now going forward, your guitar's top could be either Sitka spruce or Lutz spruce. I know you can't talk about serial numbers, but is there any official way you can make a comment about where you've seen that going?
For the most part, I'm trying to think. I don't know if it's hit standard production yet, but for the most part, we were keeping that material there. And we do everything the same way. The higher price, more traditional instruments, your 45, your 28, we try to make as few changes as humanly possible on those, unless we're doing a complete redesign where what we're doing is just making it look like guitars 45s and 28s from 40, 50, 60 years ago. So in instruments like the 17s on down, there are no written rules. There's no long-term history, so we can play with those. And to the best of my knowledge right now, most of the Lutz spruce has happened on the 17s down through the road and the X series with the solid tops. I do not believe it has yet been pulled into the standard series. I know we did buy some exclusively for the custom shop, so there might be a custom shop guitar or two out there where a customer said, I want this Lutz spruce.
You heard it here first, kids.
So that's interesting. You're actually using the actual German pronunciation. I usually hear Lutz by, most Americans say Lutz. And I have never, as far as I know, I've never seen it. And I probably wouldn't know the difference between a Sitka tree and a Lutz.
No.
Yeah, in the wild. So let me ask you this. When you look at it, because you're around this stuff all the time, would you say it would be easier to mistake it for Engelmann or Sitka? Is it like closer to one or the other?
Sitka, without a doubt. Sitka, yeah. You wouldn't know the difference. There again, as I said in our last podcast 100 years ago, it was just spruce.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's probably been showing up on instruments all over the place without anybody noticing it wasn't,
Right.
that's a subspecies, it's a
Yes.
hybrid, so it's not, it's, yeah, all right.
Right. And,
Cool.
And there's no way unless you I don't even know if there's technology available yet to determine the percentage of each of the two species that it mixes with to become Lutz. So, is it 90-10? Is it
Oh, I see.
80-20, 70-30? And, but what I have to say also is Robert Goetzl, because it's.
I was going to ask you if you think he can tell the difference.
Yes, I believe Robert Goetzl can tell the difference between the two.
Could you think Robert Goetzl could paint a Lutz spruce top, and would you mistake it for a Robert Goetzl painting of Sitka spruce? But I'm trying to hone my craft here, and not be that guy,
Too late.
Yes, Robert Goetzl can do all things.
Next question. All right, so I was disappointed, Michael, that I wasn't going to get a chance to play the new John Mayer guitars because the only ones that are completed at the time of this recording were John's personal guitars that I think are actually being shipped to him today. So,
Yes.
So I'm curious about. We're all curious about him. This will be on the air after the press release comes out next week. So, can you tell us a little bit about the John Mayer models?
So, being in my position, I'm at the very, very beginning of everything. So once material hits the floor, let's jump on to the next project. And sometimes when we're designing 2-3 years in advance.
Wow.
So I can tell you that, yes, 2 new John Mayer models are coming out. And other than that, like you said, only Johns have been made. So I haven't heard them. I honestly, at this point, I don't even know if half of the people who are involved in the entire planning have even seen them yet. So maybe next podcast we can talk more. But for right now,
Oh, okay.
I would have to do some research to answer any questions.
Okay. Well,
That's fair enough. We just had to ask. Yeah.
I'll just
Yes.
have to be patient. All right, cool. Thank you.
Put the knife down. Now put the knife down.
Well, Michael, I think this is going to be an easier question than that last one. I know we've asked you so many questions so far, and you've been such a great guest, so much so that last time you were on the air with us, we joked about let's bring him on more than once or twice, and we'll call it the quarterly report. Shame on us because I know we waited way longer than 1 quarter to have you come back again. But in the time since your absence, there's been a new program, new development, so to speak, on Martins and More. Would you like to play a game with us that we like to call 20 Questions?
If the answer is Robert Goetzl, then yes.
It could be.
Yeah, the 20 Questions is a game where we take turns, but I'll turn it over to the smart guy, and I, the wise guy, will sit this one out. But he's going to think up of a Martin guitar that is in production currently, and you have 20 questions to try to figure out what Martin guitar that's currently in production he's thinking of, including up to 3 guesses of what model that might be.
Okay.
Is that a yes?
Yeah, that is a yes. So it's a model currently in production. And when you say in production, your version of the term in production means it's still on our price list.
If somebody looked it up in the catalog, up on the website, it's showing on the website.
Let's put 20 questions on the clock and go.
Is it a dreadnought?
No.
That's one question.
Is it a OOO/OM?
No.
That's two questions.
Is it an O or smaller?
No.
Is it a OO?
No.
Wow, 4 questions. I'm going to have to play this in my own mind here.
Is it a GP?
No.
That's narrowing it down. That's 5 questions.
Are the backs and sides rosewood?
Yes.
6 questions and a yes.
Is the top Sitka and or a variant of Sitka?
Yes. Is that Robert Goetzl calling you?
No, it is not Robert Goetzl calling me. Is it a body shape that's been introduced in the last 5 years?
No.
It's a good question, though. That's 9 questions.
Any chance it has 12 strings on it?
No.
What? I thought I knew what it was.
You're not playing.
I know. Wow, that's 10 questions.
Is it a ukulele?
No.
Is it a custom shop?
No.
Okay. Does it have less than 6 strings?
No.
All right. So then the next question is going to be, is it a OO?
No.
Ah! Okay, how many questions is that now?
Maybe 14?
Oh, boy. See, this is the first time he's played. There's an early question that we ask sometimes that helps narrow things down dramatically, and he didn't ask it. So,
Okay, are you going to stop there?
You can't stop there.
Okay, well, no. I mean, it sounded like I was getting a hint, but I guess not.
No.
No.
I was just realizing, because I'm doing this too, Mike, because I thought for sure it was going to be the Grand J 16 12 string, and it's not. So I'm in the dark with you. So.
All right, I'm going to start just blowing through questions now. Is it an S body shape?
No.
We'll say that's 16 questions.
Is it a junior body shape?
No. Now you're making me wonder if this model has been discontinued and you're the only one who knows that.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I went through every single body shape.
Nuh-uh.
Except for the one you're thinking of. Okay. I'm going to blow the name so nobody write in and say I said it wrong. Is it a major Kealakai?
It is not the Kealaki.
Kealaki?
Wow. Okay, you have one more guess by my counting, I think. Maybe 2.
One more.
You probably only want one more.
Yeah, now I'm starting to get a headache. All right, so I have one more question and then I get to guess.
Yes, that's how we'll play it. That's how we do.
Okay. All right.
I know what it is, I think.
All right. Does it have sloped shoulders?
No.
Oh, then you have me completely baffled. I'm going to then, my official guess is it's a backpacker.
That's a really great guess, but I'll let you phone a friend one time, and the only friend you can phone is on this podcast with us. Spoon, do you want to tell him?
Okay, here's my guess. Because my headset actually went out a little bit, so I missed a little bit of this. Is this the BC16E bass?
No!
Oh, you're kidding. Well, that's an M size, and I don't think he mentioned that, so I assume it's got to be that.
No, I did ask if it had 4 strings.
I missed that. I missed that. Okay. All right, well, what's the big reveal? Maury, tell him what he didn't win.
Ladies and gentlemen, this instrument is the Martin J40.
Oh, wow. The J40 Indian rosewood and the spruce top with pearl rosette and the last of the great jumbos that has stayed in the Martin line all this time, which you can also get in the unusual black finish. The J40 stumped none other than the Jesus Michael Dickinson. Wow. Good job.
Wow.
You didn't ask about the M or the J, and I thought when you got through the double O, triple O, OM, I thought that was going to be one of your 4th or 5th questions.
And I'll just say in your defense, when we first started this, Maury fell in the same trap of going through the body sizes, which wastes an awful lot of questions. But the one we've learned to do pretty often is almost always we either open with, is it a dreadnought or is it made in Nazareth? Because all the Navajo stuff's available to guess too. So I thought maybe he was down in Navajo coming up with some real obscure one. And then I thought of that bass, and I thought, I wonder if it's the bass. But I missed your 4-string question. Well. Another time.
Michael, as a parting gift, and this comes from a place of love, I really do mean to try this. Next time we have you on the podcast, we'll let you ask Robert Goetzl to play this game. And he has to...
Okay, we can do the Robert Goetzl.
Robert Goetzl has to guess which guitar you're thinking about. That's only fair.
I think it is only fair if Robert Goetzl has to guess the Robert Goetzl guitars. So...
And as a side question, are you a little surprised I didn't choose the biosphere?
The other night in preparation for this, I went onto your YouTube channel and just started watching old videos and new videos and everything, because I figured he's going to ask me questions and it's going to be about guitars he has in his shop and he's been playing online. So I should probably know what he has there. So my mind is going through, it's that OMJM look-alike. That's going to be the guitar, but then it wasn't. You said, yes, it had a Sitka spruce top, and at that point, my main guess, I was like, wait, no, there was just a 16 series, what did you do, a DC 13E or something like that? Or
yeah, we did the 13 and the 12 the other day, too. Wow, you've actually prepared for this. I'm impressed. Yes,
I did prepare.
Maury's not allowed to do his customs because that's too hard for me to guess. So it's got to be something in the catalog. Right.
Yeah. But hey, a couple weeks ago, Spoon picked the bass, and I got so mad. Well, Michael, I don't want you to think that the only reason we got you on camera today was to talk about the 20 questions, but I'm going to let Spoon think of a guitar next time because mine did not work out so well. But if you think that was tricky and troublesome, you got to wheel back and see some past episodes where he completely nailed me to the wall, and he was not as polite as we were today. But I just had so much fun talking with you again. I know I can speak for Spoon when I say all of our listeners feel the same way. Michael Dickinson will go down in history as one of the best guests on Martins and More. Of course, Robert Goetzl is also a good friend of ours, but I've got a place in my heart for you that nobody can replace. So I want to thank you for spending your time with us today. I want to thank everybody who listened to please consider sending us an email to support@maurysmusic.com. If this program has given you the idea and now you might have a question you'd like us to ask Michael after the fact, let us know in an email and we'll certainly try to get some answers for you. If not before the next time we get Michael on camera, definitely for the next episode of Martins and More that does feature Mike Dickinson and the Quarterly Report. Spoon, do you have any parting words?
I just, again, I'd like to thank Mike as well. It was great seeing you at Martin Fest for as little as I got a chance to do. And And hopefully I'll be getting to Pennsylvania more regularly now that the world's getting back to normal. So thanks for being on here, and thanks for setting me straight on the old issue with ebony and the finish on the top. So now the mystery solved, that it was actually something about the Macassar ebony that had nothing to do with the dyed fingerboard. So I'm glad to know that. So thanks very much. I appreciate you taking the time out of your day.
Well, you're very welcome, and of course, my parting words I have no choice but to say Robert Goetzl, Robert Goetzl, Robert Goetzl, Robert Goetzl, and it was my pleasure, Robert Goetzling, and may you both have a very wonderful Robert Goetzl.
Who would have thought this podcast would be so profitable for the guest?
Yeah. And once again, thank you very much for having me. I look forward to the next time. Maybe by that time I will have seen and or played the John Mayers, and if not, I will have played the new Robert Goetzl.
Well, thank you very much, Michael. We're certainly looking forward to that. From all of us at Maury's Music, Robert Goetzl.
Hear you later.
Robert Goetzl.
This has been a presentation of Maury's Music, your trusted source for Martin and Blue Ridge guitars. Find us online at maurysmusic.com.